Abkhazia and South Ossetia are two breakaway republics that fall within the borders of Georgia. Abkhazia is located in northern Georgia on the Black Sea, while South Ossetia is a landlocked territory in northern Georgia. Abkhazia became an official territory of the Russian Empire in 1864. At the start of the Soviet Union, the region was known as the Abkhazian Soviet Socialist Republic. This status was lost when Joseph Stalin, a Georgian himself, annexed Abkhazia into Georgia. South Ossetia was formed after the Soviet invasion of Georgia in the 1920s. Yet, once again, Joseph Stalin allowed for the integration of Georgians and Ossetians. This would cause major problems in the 1990s. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Georgia, Abkhazia, and South Ossetia were quick to declare independence. When Georgia sent its military to institute Georgian law in the two territories that fell within its borders, battle ensued. In 1992, the Sochi Agreement was established in South Ossetia, and in 1994, a UN-sanctioned peace agreement was established in Abkhazia. These agreements allowed Russia to establish peacekeeping forces in both regions. These forces were placed under the watchful eye of the United Nations and a European Security Organization. As relations remained relatively peaceful, the election of Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili would dictate a major policy change. In 2004, Saakashvili pledged to bring Abkhazia and South Ossetia back into the Georgian sphere of influence. He authorized incursions into Russian peacekeeping territories and bombardments of Ossetian and Abkhazian cities and villages. As this type of behavior continued, Saakashvili developed a friendly relationship with NATO, and more importantly, the United States. On 21 March 2008, Russian President Vladimir Putin warned if NATO recognized Georgia as a member, and if President George W. Bush continued to support Saakashvili, then Russia would recognize Abkhazia and South Ossetia as independent states. After several months of violent exchanges between Abkhazians, South Ossetians, and Georgians, on the evening of 7 August 2008, the Georgian military entered South Ossetia and dashed for its capital city, Tishkin-Valley. After 70% of Tishkin-Valley was occupied and an unknown number of Russian peacekeepers and Ossetians lay dead or wounded, Russian President Dmitry Medvedev authorized military action on 8 August 2008. On that date, the Russian military poured into northern Georgia to occupy South Ossetia and other key Georgian military emplacements. Until 11 August, Russian forces pushed the Georgian military out of South Ossetia and from its military emplacements around Abkhazia. Throughout the months of August and September, EU President Nicolas Sarkozy brokered a ceasefire between Russia and Georgia and got both factions to agree on the peacekeeping arrangements established in the 1990s, with the addition of EU observers on the borders of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Since the EU brokered agreement, there have been many political, economic, and military complications that have arisen. I will outline the two most important of each. The biggest political complications stem from Russia's recognition of Abkhazia and South Ossetia as independent countries. People are asking two questions. First, do they have the authority? And second, what precedent does it establish? The answer to the first question is explained by the Kosovo precedent. In 2008, the U.S. and some of its key allies recognized Kosovo as an independent country. This came regardless of the fact that Kosovo is a province of Serbia. This established a precedent of bypassing the UN and freely granting recognition at will. The answer to the second question, what precedent does Russian recognition set, provides a different answer than the Kosovo precedent. A majority of the population in Abkhazia and South Ossetia are Russian citizens. By granting these citizens independence, it gives other separatist ethnicities within Russia and throughout the world a legitimate claim to declare independence. As political issues are still prevalent in the aftermath of the Georgia-Russia war, so are economic issues. There are two finance-related complications that have stormed the proscenium. The first economic issue concerns the $4.55 billion aid package Georgia received after the Georgia-Russia war. This money was intended to rebuild the Georgian economy. However, President Saakashvili who claims that Abkhazia and South Ossetia are within his borders, will not dispatch any aid to them. This has emphasized that Georgia unofficially views Abkhazia and South Ossetia as separate from Tbilisi. This has also drawn Abkhazians and South Ossetians closer to Russia. The second economic issue revolves around energy. As Saakashvili wanted stringent sanctions placed on Russia, the EU and the US were unwilling to do so. This is due to the fact that Europe and the US depend on Russian energy. In June 2008 alone, the U.S. imported nearly 23 million barrels of petroleum products from Russia and is currently operating a $12.8 billion trade deficit. For the EU, Russia is their third largest trading partner. The EU consumed 54 billion euros of Russian energy in 2007, and that number is expected to rise in 2008. This relationship prevented Saakashvili's allies from imposing anything on Russia. Finally, as many Eastern European politics and economics are tied to military affairs, the fallout from the Georgia-Russia war is no different. The first major development after the war was Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin announcing that Russian military spending would increase by 27% in 2009. This came after Russia noticed that its military was not as efficient in August as they had hoped. The second military issue concerns a Black Caspian Sea arms race with nations such as Georgia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, which are increasing their military ties with NATO. As a result, nations such as Russia and Iran have decided to increase their own military development to deter these threats, among others. With the potential of a U.S.-influenced European missile shield, there is no conjecture that can predict what the future will bring next in this area of the world.